welcome to another episode of Flea Market Fantasy, the world's second greatest Bronze Age era comic book podcast. Joining me, as always, is new Mike L, Kevin Jank.
I have survived the snow thus far, and I'm here.
Yeah. Oh, congratulations on that. Yeah, we're supposed to be getting a big blizzard. Although by the time we're recording this, and by the time it airs, no one will know what you're talking about. But it's all right. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, by the time this airs, I'll be like Jack Torrance in The Shining, probably just sitting there frozen.
We'll have to thaw you out for the next episode. But joining us, we have a special guest today, Jank. This man used to be your arch enemy, as you were competing to see who could appear on the show more often, and you've blown past him now because of this. Because you murdered Mike L and you took his job. So this is his first appearance in the post Mike L era. Ladies and gentlemen, he's an author, he's a raconteur, Miles Watson. Miles Watson.
Clapping noises.
Yeah, a lot of people are excited.
Loud cheering noises from the crowd. The crowd's happy that I'm here. They're
Miles,
is this could this be sort of like Carl Weathers and Rocky teaming up?
Oh.
Because, Jank was my mortal nemesis.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Always, but now we're in Rocky III territory because the Canadian went back to Canada to do Canadian things that we don't understand.
Now I'm training you to be my successor in the person with the highest amount of guest appearances.
That's right. I'm Rocky then.
I'm going to teach you how to move.
Yeah. How do you feel about Mike L just leaving the show, Miles?
I was shocked by the way you described his departure. That was not something I was expecting. Seemed rather terse and unexpected.
Still haven't heard from him. But anyway, Miles, thank you for being on the show. Now this week it was my choice, and I already picked the book, and I asked if you wanted to come in, and you're like, yeah, I'll come in for that book because it seems like something up your alley there, Miles Watson. I chose Logan's Run, issue 6 from what year is this? 1977, I believe, right? Yeah. Yep.
Sure. Sounds right.
Yeah. Now, this is based off a film, which of course was based off a book, which we'll get into in a minute. But Miles, what do you know about Logan's Run?
Well, I saw the movie, and I'm actually old enough to remember, in reruns anyway, the TV show, the brief, short-lived 14-episode TV show spin-off from the film.
Yeah, that came out in 77, I think. I think the TV show came out in 77, like the same year as this comic book, I think.
Yeah, and I think just like the Planet of the Apes TV show, it was sold in syndication as like a package. So even though I probably wasn't old enough to have seen it when it was on the air, I saw it, they would show it on the local television shows, channel, I'm sorry. And so I actually vaguely remember the series as well. They did the same thing with the Planet of the Apes television show. It was like 14 episodes as well. And they just sort of bulked it into a package and sold it to some local stations. So same principle. So I do remember Logan's Run. I actually rewatched the feature film about, 4 or 5 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that.
I had never seen it. I watched it the other night. So we'll get into some details in the movie. Yeah. But when I was a kid, though, Miles, I always remembered seeing these ads for Logan's Run. Like I can remember in the comic books, like the logo, the script they use. It's a distinctive font. So I always had this image of Logan's Run, but I've never read any of the books. Do you remember ever encountering the comic book, Miles?
No, I do not. I don't think I knew a comic book actually existed.
Yeah, okay. Well, it didn't last long. 7 issues. We'll get into that in a minute. Jank, what is your history with Logan's Run?
I did watch most of the movie probably 3 years ago.
Wow.
I think I saw like 2/3 of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then, it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, I could go back and finish that, but why?
Oh, how dare you.
I moved on to other things.
I enjoyed the film. I thought it was okay. It could have definitely been better.
Yeah, I didn't hate it.
But my
favorite. It's not a terrible movie.
Yeah, it's solid. It was stronger though. My favorite thing is Peter Ustinov, who did he play in the Agatha Christie? Who did he play? Poirot, right? Did he play Poirot? Yeah. But Peter Ustinov, he plays an old man in here who lives in the remnants of Washington D.C. with a bunch of cats.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like my
future,
dream.
Mike, though.
Yeah,
Your future.
that's kind of like my dream.
And can I just mention, I actually met Peter Ustinov.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah,
Cool.
when I was a kid. He gave a lecture, or the public speaking event I think for the National Press Club or something, and my dad brought me, and I barely knew who he was at first, but then I remembered he played Nero at one point in his career, and then he played Poirot, and I was actually a big fan when I was a kid. I was a big fan of his like Death on the Nile.
Yeah,
and
I remember watching that.
Although he made like 4 or 5 of those movies where he played Poirot, and I was a big fan of that when I was a kid. Which is weird because I wasn't a big mystery fan, but I liked him. I liked him and his partner, so he was funny as shit. He some famous person sent him some incredible it was a wine grower or something, sent him grapes as a birthday gift. This big basket of these French champagne grapes. The guy owned a vineyard. These things were worth probably their weight in gold. And he sent it to him, and Ustinov didn't send him like a thank you note or anything. So the French guy calls him up and he's like, yeah, I sent you, those champagne grapes or whatever they were. And he's like, and you didn't say anything. And he's like, yeah, I prefer my grapes in wine form, dickhead.
All right. Well, that's nice.
I was like, he might not have said dickhead, but it was one of those French insults that I can't translate. But he was like, send me my grapes in wine form. And I was like, this guy's cool. He's like the Keith Richards of the acting community.
This guy's cool. Well, he's good in Logan's Run. He does a really good job in Logan's Run. And he's not as good as the job as all the cats do, but he's still very good. Also about Logan's Run, when you hear about the movie, they always say starring Michael York and Farrah Fawcett. Well, Farrah Fawcett's barely in it. I guess she is.
Yeah, it's important to. They always as part of my prep tonight. I was like, who's in the? I couldn't remember who had played Logan. So I was like, holy shit, it's Michael York, because he was one of those people that was kind of ubiquitous. He was all over the place for a certain number of years. You always saw his face. And I'm looking through the cast and it said Farrah Fawcett. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I don't remember. I've seen that movie at least 2 or 3 times, and I don't remember it. But then I remembered that Farrah Fawcett was just. At the time, she was just another model who wanted to be an actress. She hadn't hit the fame yet, and she hadn't married Lee Majors. So yeah, that was not a big thing.
Well, she did. I guess she got famous by the time they filmed it, and then before it came out, because I think that's why they put her up, because she got famous with Charlie's Angels. And then
it makes sense. I mean, it was a good marketing move.
And she was billed as Fawcett Majors, so on the screen.
Oh, okay. Because she had
so she was married.
And then she did her appearances on $6 Million Man, and eventually she landed the role, of course, on Charlie's Angels, and that was the end of that. But
I feel bad. She gets second billing, and the girl who stars in the film is a lady called Jenny Agutter, Agutter, and she was real cute. And she was the star, and she just gets completely tossed aside for Farrah Fawcett, who played a doctor's secretary. That's what she's like a receptionist at doctor's office.
Jenny Agutter was a really big star for a while. She was in a bunch of. If you look up her IMDb, she was in the 70s. She was all over TV in Britain. She was in movies. She was in The Eagle Has Landed. She shows up. All over the place. I had a little bit of a crush on her as a kid.
Yeah, she looks real good in this. I think she's still on some popular TV show now. Something sent for the midwife, or some midwife situation.
Yeah,
the name of
she's in that. That's a big. It's a big British.
Yeah,
TV
BBC
show.
kind of thing. But I wasn't. I totally forgot she existed. When I saw her, I was like, oh yeah, she looks familiar. But she looks good.
Well, she was in American Werewolf in London. She's the love interest. She does. She's the cute girl that fucks the werewolf before he becomes a werewolf.
That's exactly
she was
right.
in Child's Play 2. She's in The Eagle Has Landed, which is a really good movie. But she shows up just constantly. I mean, it's not like she never stopped working, but apparently I think she spent a good part of her television acting career. She was in Magnum P.I. She was in $6 Million Man, which we just mentioned. She was in a long, tawdry TV movie about slavery called Beulah Land, Twilight Zone, Murder, She Wrote, all that shit. Like she was very busy during the 70s and 80s. She just sort of showed up everywhere in films and TV. Man in the Iron Mask. Like I ran into her, so to speak, like when I was a kid growing up. She just seemed to sort of show up in all the things that I was watching. And she does get tossed aside like harshly. Like Farrah Fawcett, it's like, oh, she has a 2-minute role in this movie versus poor Jenny, who's not hard to look at either. I mean,
no, I prefer Jenny, I think, to Farrah Fawcett. And she does a good job in here. And what else about this film is of note? Well, Michael York. Well, Jenny, she was like the actress. She was like 25, I think, when she was in Logan's Run. Farrah Fawcett was like 29. But everyone else in this movie, it looks like they're pushing 40. And again, the premise of Logan's Run, at least in the film, is that you only live to 30 and then you die. So you kill you. But the book, this is based on a novel from 1967 by William F. Nolan and George Clayton Johnson. The novel was set in the year 2116, where life ends at the age of 21. That's a little crazy, right?
That's really harsh.
I mean, just get to drink and now you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, how would society advance if you're always dying at 21? So I think that's a misstep there by the.
No, I agree. Pushing the age up made every bit of sense. That was 21 is way too young.
Yeah. So then the film came out in 1976, and again it had Michael York as the big star here, and then the comic book, the movie was successful. So the Marvel says, "Hey, we'll do an adaptation of the movie here in the comic book form." And MGM said, "All right, yeah, let's do that." So Marvel put out the comic book, and it was started in 1977, lasted 7 issues. The first 5 issues was a movie adaptation. Then issue 6, what we're reading here today, and issue 7 started to continue the story. Like after the movie ended, they're like, "Oh, we'll imagine what the story is now," And it's basically the Michael York character, Logan 5. Coming to grips with the consequences of his actions of tearing down this city that kills everybody at the age of 30. So
they got a whole 2 issues out of that. Huh?
Yeah. Well, here's why. Because MGM said, "Hey, Marvel, we didn't agree to this. You can't be doing this. We agreed to the movie adaptation, and that's it. You can't just be taking this as an ongoing series." So Marvel had to quit production after issue 7. How about that? You think that's something they would have discussed beforehand? Yeah.
Well, you're assuming
in the license.
The intelligence of executives, but
at the same time, Marvel also did movie adaptations of 2001: A Space Odyssey and Star Wars. Did you ever hear of Star Wars?
No.
Sounds familiar. Don't they have space hookers in there?
Yes, they do. We did a comic book where there were space hookers and stars. But Logan's Run at issue 7 ended, and then Star Wars started up like that same month. So like no one gave a fuck about Logan's Run anymore. They're like, get out of here. So there you go. The original creative team for issue 1 was Jerry Conway was writing, with George Perez was the artist. How about that, Jake? George Perez.
Oh wow.
And Klaus Janson was doing the inks.
Step up from what we got here.
Hey, how dare you? And then issues 2 through 5, David Kraft took over writing. And you still had Perez and Jansen as the art team. And then issues 6 and 7, we're doing issue 6 today. John Warner is the writer. Tom Sutton is the artist, who Jank just insulted. So.
Did he also do the cover? Because that's where the main shots are going to be fired.
No, the cover's Paul Gulacy, who you loved his Elvira pinup last week. Remember? You did, Miles Watson.
That was a nice pinup.
We did Elvira's Elvira's holiday special last week. Jank picked Elvira. Mm-hmm. And Paul Gulacy did an Elvira pinup. Jank was swooning over it. Well, and I said, I'm not a big fan of Gulacy. And then here, now you see why I don't like Gulacy too much, right? You see?
Yep. It all makes a lot more sense. Yeah. He definitely improved by the 80s, because you got to say that Elvira looks much, much better than this.
Yeah, I guess it was 10 years later. So this issue 6 that we're reading, they also had production issues when they were putting this out. So we also get a backstory in this book. And the backstory we will also discuss features Thanos and Drax the Destroyer.
Yeah, I was surprised to find them in here.
I actually have a Avengers versus Thanos trade paperback that has this reprint of that story. And I was always wondering, like, why it says collected material from Logan's Run number 6. Like,
Yeah,
why the
weird.
fuck is this in Logan's Run? I don't understand.
It's very strange. But the writer for the Drax story is Scott Edelman. And the artist is, of course, Mike Zeck. We all know Mike Zeck, Secret Wars, and the Punisher first miniseries. Yeah. Big fans of Mike Zeck here on the show. But Miles Watson, Scott Edelman, he has 27 writing credits at Marvel, including 7 issues of Captain Marvel. But he also did Dead of Night, issue 11. Does that ring any bells for you, Miles Watson? Dead of Night, issue 11.
Didn't we do that?
That is correct. We did that. That was the one with the Scarecrow. Do you remember the Scarecrow?
Oh yeah. Oh fuck yeah, the superpowered Scarecrow. Yeah, he was a little overpowered, but
yeah.
He came
out of
that
painting.
Was
He came out of a painting. Remember that?
Yeah. That was, to say the least, that was very interesting. I'm a little tongue tied even recalling the weirdness.
It was
of
good.
That,
I enjoyed it.
It was good. It was
Rico Reval did the art.
Yeah, it was vigilante, a lot of killing, creepy. The good guy was overpowered, but beyond that, I didn't have a beef with it. It was a surprisingly good exercise in vigilante justice.
I think that was 2 Shocktober's ago. You go back through Flea Market Fantasy Archives 2 Halloweens ago. But all right, but let's start out with the Logan's Run story. So basically the premise of this is that there's a city in the future. In the movie, it's set in the 23rd century, not the 22nd. And it's like an enclosed city. How would you? Why is it enclosed? Really? Because there was war outside, or because it seems like the land outside the city's all like I mentioned, DC's been destroyed and everything, and there's just cats living there. So inside the city, it's all contained. They got their own little environment in there, and you only live to 30. Everybody has a little sensor plugged into their palm of their left hand, and it turns green, I think, when you turn like 20 or something. And then when you then you turn red at like 26, I think. And then when you're 29, it starts blinking red. Or maybe when you turn 30, it starts blinking and then you're gotta die.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, and then everyone else, there's a group of guys called the Sandmen, and that's who Michael York, his character, Logan 5, he's part of the Sandmen. They go around, and whenever there's someone who wants to try to escape the city, if they're going to turn 30 and they're going to get out of there, they go hunt them down and murder them. Yeah. They terminate them. So that's who, so Logan, he's not exactly a nice guy at the start of this,
No, not so much.
Likes to murder the people. Hey, Miles, how would you feel if we died when we were 30?
That would suck because, for starters, when I was 30, I didn't like my job. So if you'd killed me, I would have just been very bitter that I couldn't have. I was like, I don't want to be a part of this job.
Yeah.
Like, let me escape and no, that wouldn't have been fair because I have this fear that say the Sandmen get me right when I was 30.
Yeah.
What if you come back and like you haunt your job?
So you're stuck at that job haunting it?
Yeah, no. So fuck that. Absolutely not.
But the important thing to remember is every person talking right now on this podcast would be long dead if we died at 30.
Yeah.
Because we're all very
I'd
old.
be super long dead at this point.
My 30th birthday was on December 21st, 2012. The day that the Mayans all said the world was going to end.
Oh.
So I thought I was going to get off the hook and never have to turn 30. But
That's
no.
Imagine your disappointment.
Hey, by the way, happy birthday, Kevin Jank. Hey, we just passed your birthday, right? Happy, or is that today?
Yeah, yesterday.
Oh, yesterday.
Yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, happy
And
birthday.
the Mayans were still wrong.
Yeah.
They're wrong again.
Yep.
Still rolling.
Fuckers.
Those fuckers. All right, so Yeah, that's the basic
Going
premise
to
of
carry
Logan's
it
Run.
too.
And is there anything else we need to know about the basic setup of Logan's Run? I think that's it, right? Oh, there's a big computer that runs the city called the computer. And
In the
here's
carousel.
yeah, this is a big thing. So when people are about to die, they get selected for the carousel, and because they don't tell them that they're dying when they turn 30, they tell them that they go to the carousel ritual and they will be renewed. They're not dying; they're going to be renewed. And in the movie, it's a very odd scene. All these people get in these like eyes wide shut outfits, and they stand on this circular carousel thing, and I don't even know if it starts to spin, but they just start levitating into the air somehow. Do you remember this scene?
Yeah, they're
like
they're in a zero gravity kind of. Yeah, they're in a zero gravity kind of column, one might say. They're rising up towards the ceiling, and you get the impression that if anyone gets to the ceiling, they would win this game. But they're all getting vaporized. In the movie, it's pretty much, it seems to me like some kind of a Survivor thing. Like if you get to the top, you would live, but nobody does. They all get vaporized or whatever. So I didn't see it as them being renewed. I saw it as I mean, this is just my impression. I didn't see it as them being renewed. I saw it as them trying to get to the top of this chamber successfully, but none of them ever do, and they get vaporized, and it's kind of like, oh, tough luck. Like that fake lottery in 1984 that nobody ever wins.
No, they all think they're being renewed. Like when they explode, people are cheering. They're like, renew, renew, renew. They're actually chanting.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I guess I either didn't understand that or I didn't remember it.
They think it's all part of the big ceremony. Like, this is what happens. They're just being renewed, and everyone's all happy, like, yay, yay. But there is a group of people, the conspiracy theorists, those crazy conspiracy theorists. They say, hey, you know what? They're just killing you. They're not renewing you. They're just murdering you. Maybe don't do that.
Yeah. When you explode, you don't live through that. Let me break this down for you in simpler terms.
You crazy conspiracy theorist.
You've obviously never eaten at Taco Bell, but whatever.
So these people who know the score, they have their own little secret society where they try to run out of the city and escape to a place called Sanctuary. And Jenny Agutter, the actress, in the book, I think she's called Jessica. Is that her name? Jessica, maybe? We'll go with Jessica.
I believe. I didn't read.
She's one of these people who are kind of want to go to that sanctuary. They know it's all jive, and they want to go live on their own. So Logan, Michael York's guy, he's then told by the computer. The computer calls him in one day and says, "Hey, Michael York, we believe that there are some runners who are unaccounted for. Your job is to go find the sanctuary place and terminate them all. And in order for them to believe that you're one of the runners, we're going to advance your little sensor in your hand 4 years. So yeah, you're going to die now. So you either have to go do this or you're going to die." And he's like, "Hey, what the fuck? Computer, what the fuck?" Yeah. So even though he doesn't want to be a runaway or be part of their cult there, he says, "Look at my sensor. It's flashing. I'm dying. I'm a runner. I'll help you to get to Sanctuary." But then along the way, he kind of falls for this Jenny girl or Jessica, whatever. And so he kind of does want to be a runner then. I was a little confused by that. I going into the movie, I thought, well, he's just going to be like, he'll get close to this girl and realize, oh shit, yeah, they are lying to us. But really in the movie, his arm is like twisted into doing it. You know, it's like, hey, you don't have a choice. You have to do this. How do you feel about that, Miles?
Yeah.
That seems a little weird as a setup, right? I mean,
that he's co-opted, or what's the exact word?
Like he doesn't go into being, like I just assumed, I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but it's just a little weird. Like that he's forced into doing it.
He's undercover and then he learns that they're actually doing the right thing. So it's that works. You have to have a reason for him to question everything that he's been taught for years.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that part of it, no. Myself.
See, I thought he'd have his reason just by, thinking for himself and figuring on out. But I didn't realize, oh yeah, he's getting twisted.
No.
But here's what I think. If he doesn't have the sweet, sweet love with Jenny Agutter, at some point he's going to just go to Sanctuary and murder all these people, right? That's his idea. I'm just going to go there and murder them. But then,
he's still loyal to the system at first.
Yeah.
He and I blur it together, but in the movie, Richard Jordan is his partner, and they're like, brothers. They're like real tight, and they hunt down and kill these people. And I remember Richard Jordan's big thing was like, he taunted people who were running, and he'd go, "Run, runner," and then they'd run away, and he'd blast them to bits. But I actually did like that in a sense. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say that you could have just had him volunteer for it because he's so loyal to the system, but it didn't bother me.
Yeah. It was different. I wasn't expecting it. But anyway, his partner's name is Francis Six, I believe. They're all like numbered a certain way. And all the kids are born into like a nursery, and they're raised by the society. And how are these kids born? They're not born through are they born through the sex, or are they're born like tubes and shit, right?
Yeah, I thought it was test tubes. That's why they're all numbered, because it's like whatever experiment, whatever batch they were.
Also, this society basically just lives for pleasure. So there's a thing, I think it's called the arcade, where there's just a bunch of naked people having sex. Just go having sex. And then Jank was very excited.
I would take that over. I'll die at 30 for that.
and then
good years ahead of you.
And then Michael York, in his downtime, he gets off work, he goes back to his apartment, and he's just like flipping the channels of this button there, and he just calls up Jenny Agutter. She just appears, like materializes. He just ordered up a whore. He's like, I want to get me a lady to have the sex with. And she's like, hey, and then she's changed her mind when she found out he was a Sandman. She's like, nah, I don't want to have sex with a Sandman. And then that's but you could just dial up a prostitute. Yeah.
Oh, it's like Uber Eats for prostitutes.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So anyway, all right, let's get to the book now, finally. The cover, let's look at this cover. Jank, why don't you describe the cover for us? Because you love it.
To borrow a phrase from Kevin Smith, this cover is a hideous fucking chud.
I don't think it's that bad.
So we got the big Marvel Comics group, banner across the top. It's a red cover. We got the Logan's Run kind of under there with the cool kind of line through all the letters. It's a cool looking font. I'll give it that. It says based on concepts from the MGM production. So they want you to know that this does not follow the book. It follows the movie.
Yeah.
But then in the corner, we got the little corner box with some kind of crystal and
it's a
some
blue
guy,
red crystal.
I guess
is that like the sensor in their hand? Is that what that's kind of depicting? Or
probably. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, anyway.
I guess that makes sense. And I guess that's supposed to be Logan running.
Yeah, his silhouette.
How clever. Yeah. So then we got there's a giant hand in the background and somebody falling. Everything's on fire. It looks like some kind of chemical plant is on fire. There's like a robot down in the corner.
Yeah,
but the main focus of this that really just grinds my gears are the two figures in the forefront. We got Logan and I guess that Jessica girl. And these are supposed to be human beings, but they look more alien than that Brie was in that Hulk book a couple weeks ago. And she was an actual alien.
I kind of like Jenny or Jessica. I think she looks foxy. But here, I don't know. It's Paul Gulacy.
Look at Logan's neck.
Yeah, I know. Look at his hand.
What's going on there?
Because it's Paul Gulacy. This is how he draws. It's weird. We mentioned
his upper torso is so big compared to his tiny little waist.
Like Miles Watson.
He-Man action figure.
You have no knowledge of Paul Gulacy, correct?
Well, not before this.
What's your take on this cover?
This cover's horrible. I mean, it's
I don't think it's horrible.
Really bad. I like the tomato red background. I very much like that, actually. The color I have no issues with the color on this. There's blue banner at the top, white, you got black, you got the tomato red, you got yellow, purple, green, black. There's the colors I have no problem with. But the depiction of Logan, his body, face, her face, the expression on her face is vacuous, orgasmic, like dumb. His face is awful. He looks, way too old, and his body is totally misproportioned. His back foot.
Yeah.
I can't draw for shit anymore. That proportion on his leg is so poorly drawn. It's hard to believe that he got a job in this industry. Like, that's terrible. That is. terrible.
I like her legs. Her legs look nice. But here's the thing.
But then you look at the robot in the front, food, greens, and plankton from the sea. That freaky
that's right.
weirdo robot.
Yeah, they're
he doesn't look too bad. But
Yeah.
like his hand is articulated properly, you know, clawing in his face and everything. So I was kind of like, what is going on? I mean, it sucks. Those legs, her back leg and his back leg are terrible.
All right, I'm not as harsh about it as you guys are. Because here's the thing about Paul Gulacy. We've talked about him on the show many times in the past, but he had a very distinctive style. He was called a rip-off of Jim Steranko, basically. Do you have any knowledge of Jim Steranko, Miles?
Yeah, Steranko, yeah.
Yeah, he did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and back in the day, Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. and all that. Mm-hmm. But he was very pioneering artist back in the day, graphic designer kind of. He's more design than, you know, anatomy and stuff. But Steranko was better at anatomy and stuff than Gulacy was. Gulacy cheated anatomy, and everything looked very flat. Everything he draws looks two-dimensional and flat. And so if you can accept that that's his style and just embrace it, because he's consistent with it. But man, we did a Deadly Hands of Kung Fu book he drew that it was just laughably bad at points. And yet he was all the rage in the late 70s. People loved Paul Gulacy stuff. I don't get it either. But yeah. I like this cover, like the design, like the layout of it and everything. And I think she looks, you know, kind of nice. Yeah, his body's a train wreck. And look at how he's holding the gun. Like, don't shoot a gun like that. It's not going to work. Like, just don't do that.
It's like crooking his arm and
it's like a water pistol. I mean, literally, that's the way a kid would shoot a water pistol. It's not the way you would fire any type of weapon.
Yeah, you don't want to hold that like that. No, it's not good.
It's awful. The drawing is awful. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's a very, very acquired taste. But you mentioned that robot down in the bottom corner in the movie. When what's his face, Michael York and Jenny Agutter, they finally escape into the outside world. They come into this like frozen Alaska tundra place, and Jenny Agutter gets naked. So thank you for that. But then they meet this robot, and this robot, it turns out he's been freezing everybody. Everyone who gets there, he freezes them and stores them for some reason. I don't know. So then they have to escape from the robot. And then they find Peter Ustinov and the cats. So,
well, I think the implication is he's going to eat him, right?
But he's a robot. I don't know if he needs to eat them. I think he's just
not him personally.
Yeah.
But I think they're being frozen as food because the guy's going. Yeah. I collect food and greens and plankton from the sea. Like it's implied that they're food to him. Like it's just protein. You know, it's meat.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost thought that the people in the city, they get anyone who gets there, they freeze them and then they eat them. They put them back in the city like Soylent Green, the Soylent Green situation, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know who was eating them necessarily, but I definitely figured they were getting eaten.
Yeah. But Logan's Run. It's a wild, wild thing. And Jack, did you mention the blurbs?
There's a blurb that says, now Marvel takes you beyond the book, beyond the movie. Then at the bottom, there's one in black, like a black box with white letters. It says, his world in ruin. Logan faces new challenges and new dangers to run again.
Run again. And right about this,
do a lot of running, mostly swimming in this issue.
Yeah. Someone from MGM saw this and says, wait a minute, what the fuck? Beyond the book? What? No, beyond the movie. No.
Yeah, if we want to do a sequel, we'll make it. Get money on it.
Yeah. All right, so we open up the book, Logan's Run. Welcome to the 23rd century, the perfect world of total pleasure. Sounds good so far. There's just one catch. It can't be that bad. What could the catch be? They won't let you live past 30. Oh, my God, this is horrible. That's Logan's Run. And
it's a big catch.
Yeah, your best years are behind you at 30 anyway. So, I mean, I'll take all the years of pleasure leading up to that. Sign me up.
I would just take a moment of pleasure after that. Would be great. All right, so
exactly.
the big splash page, it just says Aftermath. And the movie ended with Logan destroying the big computer. And I got to tell you, I don't know if you remember the ending there, Miles, but the computer, he basically destroyed the city with one well-placed laser shot from his gun. It seemed like the whole thing collapsed pretty easily. You know, it really wasn't that.
he brought society down much more easily than he probably should have, given how long it had lasted. But
so they punctured a hole in the outer wall there, so all the people from inside now leave outside and they see, oh shit, there's a world out here. And then they see Peter Ustinov. He doesn't have his cats with him. It's just Peter's. But they've never seen an old man before, because everyone dies at 30.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell's that? It's an old guy. And all these foxy ladies are walking up to him like, oh, impressed by Peter Ustinov. And he's like, hey, this is pretty sweet. Yeah, this is awesome. And so that's how the movie ends. Everyone's all happy. So the book picks up where there's a big hole in the city wall there. But now Logan's fighting a bunch of people. There's a big brawl going on here on this splash page.
Yeah. Nobody's happy about the old man in this version.
Yeah. Like, hey, where are the cats? So why are they mad, Jank? They're just like, hey, what's going on here? You destroyed our city, right? He's like, hey.
Pretty much, yeah. I guess they took down the computer, which was pretty much running their entire society, so I guess that could be a problem.
Yeah, they lost their internet. This is what would happen to me if I lost my internet. They got in.
Yep.
Murder people. So, Miles, do you remember anything about this? I read this several days ago. I don't even remember what happens.
What, you mean when he was confronted by the mob and then he goes in and is confronted by the fellow runners? Or the
Sandmen? The Sandmen.
Yeah,
the Sandmen all wear black.
I'm not happy with them.
They all wear black outfits, like with a gray stripe across the chest.
They're extremely pissed at him. They blame him, quite rightly, actually, for destroying their society and for killing Francis Seven, who is the guy that was his best friend in the original who ended up hunting him. Yeah. And someone else that I don't know, which must have been killed in a previous issue called Gordon 4. It says see issue 3 in the notes. So there's the beginning pages of this comic are very heavy with references to all the buildups that had occurred, I think, both in the film and possibly in the comics. So there's a lot going on here with references. But
felt like that was 80%
when you see guys
book.
punching each other out.
Yeah.
Well, they beat him up and they try to beat him up at any rate. They're pissed at him. They no longer think that he is one of them. So yeah, there's a lot of animosity towards Logan based on him destroying their society and causing complete societal dystopic collapse. So yeah, they're mad at him.
I kind of like this as a premise, though, for an ongoing series, because you would almost think, like, the movie ends, everyone's happy, so now they're going to build a society. But he's like, oh, shit, no one's happy now. Like, the society.
No, and that makes, I agree with you there. It's these people wouldn't necessarily be happy that they now have to do things like, feed themselves, clothe themselves. They have to deal with weather. They never dealt with weather. That's something dealt with in this comic, because they don't even have a word for it. They're not happy. They're living in a pile of rubble, and all of a sudden, it's I guess this is a metaphor for like if you're wealthy and then suddenly you're poverty stricken. That's kind of the analogy here, is that these people are all having to think and do and plan for themselves for the first time in their lives. And the Sandmen are the enforcers of a society that doesn't exist. So what is their place going forward?
So then, Jank, we get like a big, kind of like a flashback where Logan's hanging in his, in the debris there, just thinking about it all went wrong. And he recaps basically the events of the film that we already discussed about him being a hunter and Sandman, and him and Jessica escaping. Oh, we also, we forgot a bit from the movie where, there's the cathedral is a place where all these little kids hang out at. These little, feral wild children. And they attack people who go through the cathedral.
Oh, that must be those people that show up later in this book. I was confused about that.
Yeah, I didn't know what that guy's deal was. But in the movie, he's in the movie. Like, he's one of the featured. He's like a 14-year-old kid. And, there's a scene in the film where they all go around Michael York and Jessica, and they're about to murder him, all these little punk kids. And he goes, hey, how old are you, buddy? You look about 15. Once you turn 15, they're all going to turn on you and murder you. So you better think about that. And then all the kids just freak out, and then they all run away. So, what can you do? But so we get the flashback about covering the film. And then where do we go from there, Jank?
We'll get to the flashback. Was this in the movie where he like kills his buddy with the American flag?
Yeah, there wasn't a flag on the pole, but he's beating him with a flag, like a pole, a long stick. And
okay. Yeah.
I don't remember a flag being attached to it. But,
Well, that was at the end of, if
flag.
you remember the film, the climax of the semi-climax of the film is Francis, the guy played by Richard Jordan, hunts down Logan, and they fight in what was it, the House of Representatives or the Senate chamber?
Something like that. Yeah, it looked like that. One of them deals.
Yeah, and I believe the United States flag is used as a weapon.
See, I don't remember. He uses a big pole, but I can't remember a flag being attached to it. But it probably was, since they drew it. I'm guessing it probably was. Yeah. But yeah, he beats him with the flagpole there. Beats him to death. And yeah. And
then he talks about how he blew up the computer by asking it a question, basically.
Yeah, I can't remember.
He made the system realize that it was wrong. Yeah. Somehow I must have convinced the computer of the same thing she overloaded and blew.
Yeah, I gotta Google that up because I can't remember what that is. Keep talking, Jack. Keep describing the comic.
Okay, but yeah, there's a big hole in the dome, and they realize that something's going on up in the sky, and basically it's a bunch of water that no one knows what it is because they've never seen rain in this place. They have no, like Miles said, there's no word for weather. So this big torrent of water just starts coming in, and everyone starts freaking out. I guess a bunch of people are getting electrocuted here.
Yeah,
big Drax.
Yeah, just in the background.
There's a lot of death and destruction.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like a Roland Emmerich like disaster movie or something.
Yeah, Logan really did I mean, he's responsible for a lot of death and anguish and destruction. He's got a lot on his conscience there.
Yeah, he did not make this world a better place, at least as of now. And I'm guessing not by the end of issue 7 either. Considering this didn't last very long. So then he's trying to rally people up and get them out of here. Him and the other Sandmen are all locked in jail at this point. So they gotta try to convince the other people to let them out. Like, hey, we'll help you guys if you just let us out of prison. And so eventually they do. They're like, all right, I guess we're all in the same boat now. We gotta get each other's backs.
Hey, I'm reading up the book synopsis by mistake. And it actually is very different in the film even. In the book, Francis, when he tracks down Logan and Jessica, they don't fight to the death. He tells them that he's actually a runner himself. He's actually 42 years old. And through plastic surgery, and he had a faulty hand sensor, he's working undercover to try and help runners get away. And actually the sanctuary is on Mars. So then they all take a rocket and go to Mars. That's how the book ends.
It's a Total Recall.
What?
That's crazy.
Okay.
Well, I guess that's better than ruining the, entire civilization. At least you're just getting out and going and build your own thing.
It seems a little weird though. And tremendously different than the film. But
it took some liberties, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it just seems like Logan asked the computer there. He kept saying there is no sanctuary to the computer, and I guess that freaked out the computer or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of the things about the film that I thought was underdeveloped was that it's, in my opinion, it wasn't clear. I thought the computer had set up this kind of fake, what's the word I'm looking for? The computer knew
an oppressive
that it was
system.
all bullshit.
Yeah, the computer was controlling everybody through myth and legend, and
right.
Yeah.
And then you kind of come to understand, and correct me if I'm wrong because it's been a minute, but you kind of come to understand that the computer actually believes the bullshit to a degree.
Yeah, apparently. And that's why he overloads at the end. because
he doesn't.
there is
Yeah,
no
he
sanctuary.
doesn't accept when Logan challenges the computer's view of existence, saying, "Yeah, this whole idea that the runners are going to sanctuary is not true." The computer has a complete fit and basically brings down society. It has a fit and explodes, and that's the end of everything.
Yeah.
So it's not clear. Like, the computer is actually delusional and thinks that it thinks the myth is true. And when I was reading before I went on the air tonight, I read the criticisms of the movie as they came out at the time. You know, Roger Ebert and all them. And one of the criticisms was that the idea was interesting but underdeveloped.
That's fair.
And
yeah.
I feel like this is a lot of the people, Leonard Maltin and a lot of those people, were saying basically in essence that this could have been a great film, but it isn't, because halfway through it's like the ideas aren't fully baked. And I kind of go along with that, because you don't really know, like, did the computer forget that it had made up all this shit, or was it programmed by humans who lied to it and said this is the way it is? You know, there's a lot of themes here, like thematically there's things going on here that don't make sense to me.
And you would think whoever set up this society to kill people at 30, they're probably somewhere else. They're older than 30, and they're doing this as a way to maintain society and to keep people down, and while they profit off it. So, like, who's benefiting from this?
Conversely, it was set up in complete legitimacy in their own mind, in the disaster times, right? Because you figure there's a dystopian necessity driving this society, right? That it was created this way. So who is behind that? Well, you figure, is it somebody who just wanted to exploit them, like, or is it right after the disaster that presumably entered the world? Did somebody feel it necessary because of food shortages, radiation, water, all that stuff? We can't sustain older people.
That's
so what we're going to do is have a
familiar.
society. Yeah. But basically, I mean, if you think about it, that's kind of, there's a logic to that. Like, you can't sustain older people, so what we're going to do is we're going to kill them when they get older. And then that became ritualized, fetishized, and normalized to the point where, you see what I'm saying? Like, they didn't necessarily have like a profit motive. It's not somebody standing off in a bunker on the top of a mountain who's running the society and just exploiting everybody. It's them. It's maybe just like the momentum of this society, because that's a big theme in if you watch the original Star Trek. There's a theme many times with computers. Kirk would have related to Logan destroying the computer, because Kirk's big thing in the first couple seasons of Star Trek actually was talking computers that had turned sentient into destroying themselves. And a big theme in a lot of Star Trek episodes is the idea of a computer that was set up to govern people in a beneficent kind of way, but ultimately became something else. Like, the society became something else, something perverted and something that was negative. But it was set up with a goal that was not evil. So that's one of the themes I thought that could have been really explored in the film, that you just don't know. Like, why does the computer explode? Well, it obviously didn't realize that it was full of shit. Like, the computer goes, oh, I've been killing God knows how many people? For what? Like there's a lot of confusion in the script. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I'm normally against all kind of like remakes or reboots, but this is honestly something that you probably could do a good job if you try to remake this movie.
Yeah, this is exactly why they should do reboots and remakes, because a film with a great concept but poor execution.
With that.
This is exactly why you did.
Yeah, and to quote Robert Englund, the one time I met Robert Englund, he was, people in the crowd were mad. They were saying like, people in Hollywood should stop doing all these reboots and these remakes. And he's like, no, he's like, films that suck should definitely be remade. He's like, what I don't understand is why people remake films that are successful. He's
Yes.
like, stop making films that are successful, and he's like, remake films that suck and do it right this time.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, because there's a lot of really good ideas that just don't. The science fiction and horror are actually very, very similar to in my mind, in that they both have a tendency to have these awesome ideas that aren't well executed. They're just not. And so, like, why not remake those?
Yeah.
Like, if you have a really good idea that doesn't pan out, fuck it. Like get on board with that. What we don't need, 100% don't need, is like, oh, let's remake The Godfather. But I don't want to get too far off the field here.
Yeah.
But I agree.
They actually
this cries
remade
out
Psycho.
for a remake. Yeah.
Remember when they remade Psycho? It's like, what are you doing?
Oh yeah, with
Yeah.
Vince Vaughn.
It was just like a shot-for-shot remake, just with Vince Vaughn.
All right, getting back to the comic book here. Logan and these people are trapped underwater. They're flying through these tunnels in water, and he meets another fox. He gets rid of a Jessica. He tells her to go to safety, and then he just happens to meet another foxy brunette while he's floating through the water, and then he saves her, and he shoots his little laser gun, and the best thing in the movie, they had these laser guns, and they would aim it at people, and then again, this is 1976 or whatever, so the special effects are fantastic. There would just be like fireworks glued to a wall, and they'd blow up. And you're like, oh, that's where the laser beam hit over there. It was pretty great. So he shoots his laser blaster through a hole in the wall. They escape drowning, and then they go to the public, like a public square, and all these Sandmen are talking to the people, and they're like, hey, people, I know we were hunting you down and murdering you. We're not going to do that anymore. All right, we're going to be good guys, and we're going to help society. But then they're still fighting, right, Jank? They're still debating this whole thing, what they should do, and I don't know.
Like, we can't trust people in turtlenecks.
Yeah. and then we see this weirdo with a knife, and I think that's the kid from the cathedral from the movie. One of the teenage kids there. He's a creep, and I don't know. Then Logan says, "Oh, I have an idea. The computer is probably." He goes down into some computer shaft, and he's like, "Oh, there's probably a computer way down at the bottom." I don't know. I'll be honest. I was like not interested in any of this when I was reading.
Well, I like that Jessica is the one saying, like, oh, the only thing that came close to playing as big a role in our lives was. And then Logan's like, carousel. Yes, that's it. And then he goes to check, and he's like, I was right. That was Jessica's idea. You just chimed in at the very last second.
Yeah, she said the carousel.
You weren't right about shit.
So yeah, he goes to where the carousel ceremony takes place, and there's a hole there in the floor, and he goes down there, and he finds another big computer, right? And he's like, oh, what's going on here? This big computer. And then that's where there's a shadowy figure.
That's a question too.
Yeah. And there's a shadowy figure in the background lurking, in the foreground, I should say. And that's where this issue ends. Logan finding this new computer. And, also, Billy and those other kids from the cathedral.
Are planning their attack. Yeah.
They're going to attack everyone else. Because they're a bunch of punk kids. So I don't know. That's where this issue ends. Next issue, Cathedral Prime, beginning the most exciting new saga yet. Join us.
And ending it.
Miles, what did you think about just this comic? Forget all about the movie and everything. If you read this, would you want to read more of this?
Honestly, I'm gonna shock both of you. When I started reading it, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
This is terrible. This is just a recounting of things that I don't care about. But I have to admit, it moved swiftly, and I did actually want to see what happened in the next issue, and I read the next issue.
Oh, look at you.
I did. I'm going to shock both of you. The first few pages were a struggle. I was kind of like, this is what I don't like about comics, when they do too much recapping. They're burning oxygen to tell you things. You know, good storytelling, you shouldn't have to do this. Like, that shouldn't be a thing. You shouldn't have to get into all these details about what happened before. That having been said, I thought it moved at a good clip, and it left me curious as to what was going to happen after the fact. So, yeah, I did. I know that both of you probably disagree, but I was like, I want to know what happens in the next episode. I want to know what happens in the core. I'm kind of curious. because I did like the idea that, yeah, we destroyed this society, but guess what? Being free kind of sucks. I thought that was kind of cool. Like the idea that, oh yeah, because at the end of the movie, everyone's like, well, let's file out of the city and then go into but in this, they kind of confront the idea of these are people who know nothing about how to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
They've had they live in a hedonistic society. They know nothing about cooking or cleaning or binding up wounds, plumbing, sewage, electricity, all the shit that we have to deal with in regular life. They don't know anything about that. And this guy destroyed their world. And he's kind of like, well, I had to do it. It was for the good of, it was for the good of all. And meanwhile, the people that used to be able to dial a hooker are like, dude, I used to be able to dial a hooker. And now I'm like scavenging for a fucking soggy bread crust while 30 other people are drowning. Like, fuck you.
Yeah,
so I actually thought
you just
that
drowned
was
all our
cool.
hookers.
Yeah. I mean, all the hookers are drowned and we're going to starve to death. So it's like, to me, I like the idea that, because generally as a societal thing, if you watch TV, if you watch like fantasy and everything, there's generally a theme that I see in fantasy and horror and all kinds of different genres of, it's better, and Star Trek is big on this too. The original Star Trek was big on the idea that it's better to be sort of like a starving, struggling, free person than a contented drone that has all their needs met. And that may be true, but there's never a follow-up episode in most of those in most of those episodes where you see people dying of typhus and dysentery and living to be 22 and having rotten teeth and freezing to death in the winter, and like they don't go into that. They're just like, well, no, the blah, blah, blah tribe is free. It's like, yeah, free to what? Free to fucking learn all the basics of like sewage and latrine digging and everything. So I kind of like that. I kind of was into that. I thought it was an interesting, it's fast paced, and I was, despite the awful cover and the tedious recounting in the first couple of like everything's got a double asterisk on it, saying, see, issue 3, blah, blah, blah. It's like, ultimately I was curious.
Jank, what'd you think of this story?
I was not a big fan. I guess it's one of the perils of, consecutive storytelling where not every chapter can be good. And I guess coming off of the movie, this is kind of a lot of setup, not a lot of cool things happening in this one. Logan himself just seems like a doofus. Like, I think he caused a lot of this problem with the flooding, like by shooting the wrong wall and stuff like that. Like, he doesn't seem good at things.
Yes.
He doesn't do much that's cool in this issue. There's not like a cool hero moment, other than him shooting that other wall at the end of the flood, but that's not very exciting, what you're looking for in a comic book. So I can't say I was a big fan. Like Miles said, with all the recapping, like, that was just excessive. I didn't feel like this advanced the story very much.
I read this first, like, early this week, and then I watched the movie a couple of days ago. So I think the movie to me was way more interesting than this comic. But like you said, they're trying to establish a new story, so they're trying to do a lot of setup and cover old ground and do everything. But I'm with you. I thought Logan seemed like a jackass in this. Like, he didn't seem very not a guy I'd like to root for. Or, hey, that guy's cool.
No.
So he just seemed like a doofus. So I wasn't a fan of him. The story at the beginning was very slow. The most exciting thing here in this entire book is Logan almost accidentally drowning everybody by being a doofus. It's like, that's not really that exciting. So
he brought this whole civilization down, then he's going to drown everyone. Good move.
I wasn't a big fan of this. But hey, Miles, how did issue 7 end? Did it seem promising the way they were going? Or no?
Well, they had the cubs,
the kids.
The kids. Yeah, they raid the city, and the fellow Sandman take it upon themselves to kind of engineer Logan's death. So there's a lot going on there. Like Logan's girlfriend gets kidnapped and he has to go fight the head of the Cubs, Billy Boy.
Yeah.
But the other Sandmen are kind of like, good, let him go and he'll die. So like there is a lot going on. I can actually really see this as a TV series. I really could, if it was done correctly.
He has to go fight a 14-year-old child.
Yeah, it's true. But they have a whole weird thing where the children have enormous strength because of this thing called muscle that
they're juicing? They're juicing?
Yeah, basically they're juicing. Yeah, I mean, for lack of a better word, the Cubs have better strength or reflexes rather than the Sandmen, who they hate. And so like there's this whole thing going on. Honest to God, if this were taken over by the right studio, this basic storyline, I'm not talking about like every single thing that they do in the comics, but this basic idea of if you took this premise, I can see them doing like a multi-season show where you have the first part where they're in the dome and then eventually the dome falls and then they have to live in the aftermath. It's pregnant with ideas if it had been done properly.
Yeah, the concept's great.
Yeah.
And again, we get back to that thing in science fiction and horror where there's so many stories that have really promising ideas, but they're not executed properly.
How'd you feel about the art here by Tom Sutton?
There are some panels specifically that I thought were kind of cool. There's one where Logan is pointing his gun directly at the camera, so to speak, at the audience.
And it's breaking the panel.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
It's the art in and of itself is not like I wasn't blown away by any of it, but there's some interesting angles. It's very dynamic as far as like there's a lot of energy and movement in this particular comic. I'm looking through the panels. No, I'm on Thanos by mistake. Hold on.
I thought it's pretty solid. I know, Jank, you were saying you weren't a big fan, but it's not overly dynamic in terms of design or anything. Mm-hmm. But no. I think it was solid 1970 comic book art. Nothing terrible.
There's movement in it. I don't know another way to put it exactly.
It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you guys know Tom Lyle, who was doing some of the I think the adjectiveless Spider-Man
a
little while in the 90s. Okay. It reminds me of that, where it's kind of like all his faces are very flat and kind of awkward looking.
I hear you. Especially the opening.
I can't argue with that.
It kind of had some of that.
Yeah.
The faces are not good in this. They're not good. I artistically, I don't think much of this. I would say some of the angles, it's almost as if cinematographically, for lack of a better word, this is almost like storyboard.
Yeah. The compositions are pretty boring and stale, but the actual line work isn't terrible. It's solid, but nothing great.
I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I mean, as pure execution, it's not very good. It just isn't. It's a little muddy. As Jank said, the faces, like I'm looking at this one profile of Logan when he's down in the computer room and he's got like a yellow halo, but I don't understand if my mental battle with the computer caused it to overload. It's terrible. Like the cheekbone is drawn like the ink bottle broke, I mean, like he's so, it's not very good. That's just the best way to put it. But the angles, I guess this is what I'm trying to say. The angles that he uses as a draftsman when he's creating this, like the different angles of the Logan doing this and the characters doing that, they're interesting. They're innovative. Like when the gun is pointed directly at the audience, so to speak. I thought almost as if he's acting as if he's storyboarding out a film, and these were just sketches to do that.
But Tom Sutton, I don't know if we've ever talked about him on the show before.
There's a lot of angle changes, I guess is what I was trying to say.
He had 97 penciling credits of Marvel, 6 issues of Planet of the Apes, Hey, we got to do Planet of the Apes sometime too. 7 issues of Doctor Strange. So that's he did. And then John Warner, the writer here, he did 34 writing credits at Marvel. 6 issues of Rampaging Hulk, Jank. He did 6 Rampaging Hulk. He did the first 7 issues of Son of Satan, 5 issues of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, 3 issues of Captain America. This issue's fine. I'd give it like a 5, I guess. You know, just middle of the road, nothing too exciting. Just 5 out of 10. But let's look at we'll get your ratings at the end. Yeah, we'll get your rating. Okay. So Drax the Destroyer is in this next story, the backup with Thanos. And I don't know, we've talked about Thanos on the show before, but Drax the Destroyer, his real name is Arthur Sampson Douglas. His first appearance was Iron Man issue 55, 1973. He is created by Jim Starlin. And basically his backstory is he was driving through the desert with his wife and daughter, and Thanos thought that they saw him, and he couldn't let anyone see him, I guess. So he blew up their car. Because he's a dick.
Which is such a ridiculous backstory. Like, what the fuck does Thanos care? Like, he's not even from this planet. What are they going to do? Expose his identity? Like, he's a fucking alien.
They're going to take that helicopter away from him.
Saturn.
So, in the explosion, Arthur's wife dies. The daughter survives, but she is abducted then by Thanos' father, or she was adopted by Thanos' father, Mentor, and raised on the planet Titan. Because Mentor was a good guy, Thanos evil. But that daughter eventually grew up and became Moondragon. Miles, do you have any concept of Moondragon?
Only from the recent, or is that Moon Knight I'm thinking of?
Probably Moon Knight. Moondragon is she's a very foxy bald lady. So.
I like that description.
Yeah, you don't hear that too often. But she's one of the
you really don't.
Foxy. She wears a lot of revealing clothing, and she's a foxy bald lady. So that's Moondragon. But then they needed a champion to fight Thanos. So Mentor and the Titan god Kronos, they captured the soul of Arthur Douglas and put it into the body of Drax the Destroyer, this guy who's just obsessed with hunting down and murdering Thanos. That's his whole reason to exist, is to destroy Thanos. And his original look, Jank, was not good. Describe his original look of Drax the Destroyer.
I mean, it's kind of like a space version of the Hulk almost. He's green, got green skin. He's kind of very bulky and strong. He's got kind of a purple headpiece.
Kind of like the Vision. Looks like the Vision up top.
Yeah, a little bit. He's got a cape like the Vision too, like a purple cape with kind of yellow interior lining. And his shirt's just kind of purple. It's kind of plain and not that great. He's got a yellow kind of championship belt. And some purple pants and purple boots.
So he had a handful of appearances in Captain Marvel, Warlock, Thor, and the Avengers before Moondragon, his own daughter, killed him in Avengers issue 220.
Yeah, in 1982. That's right.
Because Moondragon became kind of possessed and was trying to take over society on her own. So Drax tried to stop her, and she fried his brain.
Yeah.
Fried his brain. So,
did he actually die from that though? Because I thought he just lived, but his brain was all fucked up.
Well, he died. But, then that was 1982, Jim Starlin, the original creator of him, then resurrected him in Silver Surfer issue 35, 1990. Now he was back. He was more powerful, but his brain was still fucked up from Moondragon's attack. So he's not that bright.
Now he's even more like the Hulk, where he just kind of spoke very monosyllabically and, not very bright.
So then he appeared in the Infinity Gauntlet issues 1 through 6 in 1991, and then he joined Adam Warlock in the Infinity Watch. He was there for all the issues, I believe, 1 through 42, 1992 to 95. Then in 2004, he had his own 4-issue limited series by Keith Griffin and Mitch Breitweiser. And this series started with him in prison because he was arrested for murdering more than 200 Skrulls.
No.
So this prison ship is flying through space, and it crashes in Alaska, here on Earth. And he survives, but also a couple other Skrull prisoners survive, and they kill Drax. They stab him right through the head, and they kill him. So he's dead. and this little Alaskan girl named Cammy finds him,
Yeah.
and then he pops out of his own body, like his body is a cocoon, and he cracks out of it, and now he's a little smaller. So he doesn't look big, bulky, Incredible Hulk flying in space guy. He's just a normal sized guy, but jacked up like Dave Bautista in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And he no longer has the ability to shoot energy blasts out of his hands or anything. And he just has pants, no shirt. And he eventually, when he pops out of the body and resurrects, he also gets those crazy tattoos on his body.
Yeah, the big red. They're not quite as detailed as like the ones in the movie, like where they're all over him. It's more just kind of be these big red circular type things,
like on his shoulders and traps and stuff. And that's and he also started using knives to kill people. So this is how we get the Dave Bautista Drax the Destroyer that we all know and love. Yeah. Miles, have you seen the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, Miles?
I saw the first one.
So you're familiar with Drax in the movie?
Yeah.
So that's who we're talking about here. And he resurfaces again then in 2006, the Annihilation series.
Yep.
And 2007.
When he finally fulfilled his purpose in that one, yeah.
He kills Thanos. And then 2008, he's Annihilation Conquest. And then Star-Lord recruits him to join the Guardians of the Galaxy in 2008. So that's how we get him to the Guardians. But that's your backstory of Drax the Destroyer. So in this book, or this backup story in Logan's Run issue 6 is Thanos. He's conquering this planet, Jank. And what does he want to do? Because there's something about this planet that's special. And what is Thanos?
Yeah, this kind of seems below Thanos' pay grade, but they have a final flower, apparently. It's the last flower left on their planet. And he's just there to kind of crush it. That's what he's after.
Because he's a jerk.
Yeah.
This Thanos guy.
He's just a space jerk. Yeah, that's all he wants. No infinity gems at this point. Just, what can fuck up with these people on a very small level? I'll do it.
Go crush it. But this final flower on this planet, it's like a holy relic. Everyone worships this final flower. It's a big deal for this planet. So Thanos is like, you know what?
Around.
Yeah, I'm going to go down there and crush that flower. Because I'm Thanos, and I'm a jerk. And but then Drax. So the story opens with Thanos standing there conquering these people who are guarding the flower, and he's got the flower in the palm of his hand. But then we see Drax flying in from the background. And Drax is like, I'm going to kill you, Thanos. And they start fighting. And we see Drax shooting energy blast at him. And Thanos is just laughing like, you're useless. I'm not even worried about you. And then Miles, we get a lady and her daughter. They're climbing. Apparently they don't hear any of this. They don't hear Thanos and Drax fighting. They're like, hey, I want to show you this last flower, little girl. We're going to go up there. And then what happens, Miles?
Well, they encounter the battle that's going on, and then they're very upset, and the mom runs over and starts pummeling Thanos with her fists, which he's not super happy about. So he hurls them off a cliff, which
he kind of skips them like stones.
Great. The best part is he's not. Them,
This is a guy that's comfortable being evil. Let's put it that way. He's not giving a fuck. He's just like, you don't have the power to annoy me, but then he throws him off a cliff. So clearly he was annoyed. I mean.
Yeah. And when they skip, they hit the ground. There's a poink sound effect. Poink. And then they bounce off the cliff. It's pretty awesome. But Miles, when Drax sees this, he flashes back to when Thanos killed his wife and daughter,
That's right.
Son of a bitch. So
and he goes to save them.
Yeah, he has to make a choice. He goes to save the daughter and the mother. And while he's doing that, Jank, what does Thanos do?
He steps right on that flower. He does what he came there for. Just crushes it under his boot.
He grinds out the flower. So then the Destroyer gets up there, and Thanos is mocking him. He's like, hey, idiot, you saved those two chumps that I threw off the cliff, and I crushed that flower. Sucker, see you around. And he leaves, and Drax is like all sad. And the mother says, you should have killed him. He crushed the flower, the last sacred bloom. You should have let us die. And then Drax says, but I could not. For then would I not have been as evil as Thanos? And he flies away. The hunt goes on. That's the end of the story.
Yeah. Very short story.
Yeah. What'd you think of that, Miles?
I actually liked it. I mean, it's a little silly, but I liked it. It's short. It's packed with stuff. It shows how evil Thanos is. It shows that this guy's obsessed with destroying him, and that he's not discouraged by the fact that Thanos is more powerful than he is, and he's willing to set aside his quest for vengeance to save the two girls. So it establishes him as a hero and Thanos as a villain. I liked it. It's one of those little, what do they call these, incidentally, inside a comic, these fragments of a story? What do they call these? Is there a name for it? Is there
like a backup story, I think?
Yeah, just a backup, yeah.
Okay. Well, whatever it is, as they go, I thought it was kind of cool. I liked it.
Yeah, Jank, what'd you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's good, it's a cliche dilemma at the end of, should I have let them die to go after Thanos? But it works. It's a good question to ponder. Although clearly in this situation, he made the right call because he was getting nowhere fighting Thanos. Oh, this is the time I would have killed him. He was just shrugging off all your energy blasts. You weren't going to do dick to him. So yeah, just save those people.
But yeah, this is only 5 pages long, but like Miles was saying, it covers a lot of ground. You establish the character of Thanos pretty clearly. And you also reveal that Drax has humanity to him. He's not just this obsessive wanting to kill Thanos. He's got a little more depth to him. So yeah, I thought it was really well done. 5 pages. This is early Mike Zeck. So this is 7 years before Secret Wars. So that puts it in perspective, I guess. But the art's still good.
I thought it was still pretty solid. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was one of the first people to kind of give Thanos a little bit more bulk. Remember, Thanos used to be pretty skinny in the early days in his first couple of appearances, but he's kind of got the bulkier later Thanos look here.
Yeah. And again, it's early Drax, so you get to. It's a very weird. The version with Dave Bautista does in the movies. That Drax is great, right? Way better than this Drax, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he has a personality, whereas this guy is just kind of, all vengeance all the time.
Just his look, too. I mean, man, he looked goofy.
Yeah. It's a good look. Yeah. That was a smart redesign. Every once in a while, they'll redesign something that works. Like Power Man, obviously he needed a redesign. The tiara and the yellow shirt, that couldn't go on forever.
Yeah, I don't even think of him as Power Man. Yeah, Luke Cage is who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like the yellow silk shirt with the butterfly collar. It's a good look. But Miles, what do you think of overall Logan's Run issue 6? If you had to score it, taking it in its entirety, with the backup story included, what do you give it?
I am going to shock you.
Yeah.
You'll never recover from the shock. I'm going to give it a 7.5.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because you liked that first story a lot. So
and here's why. I breezed through it. After the first, 3 pages, which were shit, and I was like, oh, this is tedious, and it's just, I don't like this at all. I honestly breezed through it, and I wanted to see what the next story had. It's not that the storytelling was so genius, but I felt like it moved at a rapid clip. It was showing me something that I don't normally see, which is sort of the end of the what happens after the happily ever after part, where the Death Star blows up, or Sauron or Voldemort or whoever, is dispatched, how the nuts and bolts details of okay, we slew the dragon, but now we have to go on. And I thought that was kind of a cool approach. I thought the story moved quickly. I wasn't crazy about the artwork. And there's obviously a big problem at the beginning with just a lot of regurgitation from previous stuff. And I could get into a lot of other nitpicking that would be easy, but I moved quickly through it, and I kind of like the Thanos interlude. It doesn't really do anything, but it's fun. So I'm going to give it a 7.5, which is probably more than it deserves. It's probably only a 7, and even then, that might be a little bit of an inflation. But I've read better stuff for Comic Book Syndicate that I didn't enjoy as much as this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Jank, what do you think as a whole, the whole entire issue?
Well, I would say for me, I would give the Logan's Run part a 3. Neither the story or the art really did anything for me, so it was kind of just in one ear, out the other. But the Thanos story, I had a good time with that one. I like the art. I like the story. I like them together. So I'm going to give that part a 7. So it'll average out to a 5, I guess, overall.
On reflection, I'd probably give the Logan's Run a 4. This an 8. The Thanos story an 8. So together, that's a 12. That's a 6. So 6 for me overall. That'll work out. So there it is. Logan's Run issue 6. Jank, you're up next week. What are you picking?
That's right. Well, I had mentioned this to you a couple weeks ago, because I was having some doubts over whether this counted as Bronze Age or not. But the ruling on the field was that it does count. It's at the very, very, very tail end of the Bronze Age here.
Yes.
We're going to a book that technically, according to the cover, says it's January 1990, but was actually released in November, I guess, 1989. Yeah. So technically it'll still be Bronze Age. We're going to look at a group that we haven't covered on this show, Power Pack, with Power Pack number 53, where Power Pack runs across Typhoid Mary.
Yes.
Who's a favorite of both of ours.
Yes, Typhoid Mary is one of my favorite characters. Miles, do you know who Typhoid Mary is?
Historically?
No. In the comic book world.
No, I do not.
Yeah, she's a Daredevil arch nemesis, but she's a crazy, sexy lady who carries machetes.
Yeah.
That's what she does.
She doesn't just want to kill the devil. She also wants to make sweet, sweet love to him.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah. And do you know who Power Pack is, Miles?
No, I do not.
They're a group of children who have superpowers.
Kind of like those Billy Boy and his guys, I guess, in this.
Yeah.
I was literally just about to say that. It's like Billy Boy.
After they get done with their HGH treatments, they become Power Pack. All right, so that's next week. Power Pack, you said issue 53? Is that right?
Yep, number 53. Part of the Acts of Vengeance crossover where everybody's switching villains.
Oh, we'll get into that next week because I don't even know what that is. But all right, that'll be next week. Hey, Miles Watson, thank you for joining us again, buddy. We always appreciate it. Everyone should go to Amazon.com and search Miles Watson. Buy all his books, Cage Life, Knuckle Down, Sinner's Cross, Very Dead of Winter, The Devils You Know. He's got a bunch of them. Go buy all his books. They're great. Or 19books.com. Man. Sorry, Miles. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. My next book will be called Logan's Run versus Thanos. And who the hell knows what's going to happen? It'll have shitty cover art and
people.
Kids on steroids. There's literally no end to the ideas that rushing through my brain right now.
Thanos hunts down runners, and when he catches them, he skips them on a pond.
I have an idea. Thanos finds Alf.
Hey, there you go.
On a distant planet. And he takes a flamethrower and shoves it up Alf's ass. And okay.
He kills him with each of the different, 6 soul gems in different ways.
Oh, I like that too. As long as we're torturing and killing Alf, I'm loving this. I'm loving where this is going.
That idea started out great until the Alf hatred, but now we got to end it. So, thank you, Miles. Thank you, Jank. And until next week, don't get any jank on you.